Commander Lyra Blackwood stood at the viewport of the EDF Sentinel, watching distant stars blur past as her ship patrolled the outer colonies. Her reflection showed tired eyes. She hadn't slept well since the disappearance of the research vessel Horizon's Dawn near the Proxima Belt. "Commander," Lieutenant Felix Reed's voice cut through her thoughts. "We're picking up unusual energy signatures at the edge of our sensor range." Lyra turned from the viewport, her short silver-streaked hair catching the dim bridge lights. "Classification? Nothing matching known signatures, ma'am. But the energy output." Felix paused, his dark fingers dancing across the holographic display. "It's massive. Larger than anything in our database." "Battle stations," Lyra ordered, her voice calm but firm. The bridge erupted into controlled chaos as red alert klaxons began to wail. "Send word to Colony Outpost 7. Tell them to begin emergency protocols." The unknown vessels appeared suddenly, as if materializing from the void itself. Their hulls gleamed with an iridescent sheen that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Lyra counted 7 ships, each easily twice the size of the Sentinel. "Open communications on all frequencies," she commanded. "This is Commander Lyra Blackwood of the Earth Defense Fleet vessel Sentinel. You have entered restricted space. Please identify yourselves." The response came not in words but in action. A beam of pure white energy lanced out from the lead ship, missing the Sentinel by mere meters. Lyra's training took over. "Launch defensive drones. Get me a targeting solution on their lead vessel. And someone tell me why our long-range sensors didn't pick them up sooner." "Their hull composition," Science Officer James Harrison called out from his station. "It's like nothing we've seen before. Some kind of metamaterial that bends scanning waves around them." The battle that followed was brief but intense. The Sentinel's automated defense systems intercepted most of the enemy fire, but several shots got through, scorching their armor. Lyra's crew fought back with everything they had, their rail guns spitting torrents of hyper-accelerated slugs at the alien vessels. To everyone's surprise, their weapons proved effective. One of the enemy ship's shields flickered and failed under the assault, its hull rupturing in a spectacular cascade of purple-tinged explosions. "They didn't expect us to be able to hurt them," Lyra realized aloud. "They thought we'd be defenseless." The remaining ships regrouped, forming a defensive pattern that spoke of years of military training. A transmission finally came through, the universal translator struggling to process the complex harmonics of their language. "You have committed an act of war against the Novan Empire," a deep voice declared. "Your species' existence is forfeit." Before Lyra could respond, the ships vanished, leaving behind only debris from their fallen companion. She ordered immediate recovery operations, knowing that every scrap of technology they could salvage would be crucial in the coming conflict. Hours later, in her quarters, Lyra reviewed the sensor logs with Harrison. "They were testing us," she said, pausing the replay on an image of the alien ships. "This wasn't a full attack force." Harrison nodded, his weathered face grave. "The energy readings suggest their weapons were operating at minimal power. They wanted to see how we'd respond. And now they know we can fight back." Lyra stood, walking to her small viewport. "But why attack without provocation? There has to be more to this." "Commander," Harrison hesitated. "During the battle, I detected unusual readings from within their ships. Their life signs, they were unstable, fluctuating in a way that shouldn't be possible." Lyra turned back to him. "Meaning?" "Meaning either their biology is completely alien to anything we've encountered, or—" He met her eyes. "Or something is very wrong with them." The implications hung heavy in the air between them. Lyra thought of the Horizon's Dawn, of all the colonies that would now be at risk. Whatever the Novan Empire was, whatever drove them to this aggression, humanity would have to be ready. "Send everything we have to Fleet Command," she ordered. "And Harrison, start analyzing that debris. I want to know everything about these Novans, their technology, their capabilities, and most importantly, their weaknesses." As the Sentinel limped back toward the nearest starbase for repairs, Lyra couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The stars had once seemed infinite and full of promise. Now they felt like hiding places for threats humanity never imagined. But they had bloodied the nose of a supposedly superior force. That had to count for something. And if war was coming, Lyra Blackwood intended to make sure humanity was ready for it. Admiral Caden Novatus stood before the Grand Council, his crystalline armor reflecting the pale blue light of the chamber. The defeat at the human colony still burned in his mind, not because they had lost a ship, but because it challenged everything the Novan Empire believed about their superiority. "Explain yourself, Admiral," High Counselor Venna demanded, her voice echoing through the vast chamber. The bioluminescent markings on her face pulsed with barely contained anger. "How did a primitive species manage to destroy one of our vessels?" Caden maintained his composure, though the pain coursing through his body made it difficult. Like all Novans, the degradation was getting worse. "The humans are not what we assumed, Counselor. Their weapons utilize principles we hadn't considered. Their defensive capabilities far exceed our intelligence reports." The chamber erupted in murmurs. Caden caught glimpses of other council members checking their personal monitors, presumably tracking their own degradation levels. They all knew time was running out. "And what of the prisoner?" another counselor asked. "Has the human scientist revealed anything useful?" Caden's thoughts turned to Dr. Marcus Sterling, captured during the raid on the research vessel Horizon's Dawn weeks before the failed attack. The human had proven surprising. "Dr. Sterling is cooperative, but not in the way we expected," Caden replied carefully. "He's more interested in our biology than our military capabilities. He claims he might be able to help with our condition." High Counselor Venna rose from her seat, her anger now visible in the rapid flashing of her markings. "You revealed our weakness to a human. Have you lost all sense of pride, Admiral?" "He discovered it on his own," Caden defended. "Our containment protocols were perfect, but he noticed the cellular degradation in our guard's tissue samples. He's a xenobiologist of considerable skill." Later, in the depths of the Imperial Science Center, Caden watched through a force field as Dr. Sterling worked. The human was older than most of his kind they'd encountered, with gray hair and wire-rimmed spectacles that he insisted on wearing despite being offered superior Novan optical enhancements. "Your civilization is fascinating, Admiral," Sterling said without looking up from his work. "Advanced enough to bend spacetime, yet you never developed certain fundamental understandings of genetic engineering. It's rather like building a quantum computer before inventing the wheel." "Focus on the task at hand, Doctor," Caden growled, though there was less hostility in his voice than there had been weeks ago. "Can you stabilize the degradation?" Sterling finally looked up, his eyes sharp behind those ancient glasses. "I can do better than that. I think I can cure it. But you won't like how." "Explain." "Your species' genetic structure is breaking down because it's too perfect," Sterling said, pulling up a holographic display of Novan DNA. "Generations of genetic engineering to achieve perfection have created a biological dead end. You need chaos, natural mutation. You need..." He paused meaningfully. "Human DNA." Caden felt his markings pulse with shock. "That's impossible. Our species are completely different." "Are we?" Sterling manipulated the display, overlaying human genetic sequences. "Look at these base patterns. There are similarities that shouldn't exist between species that evolved in different star systems. Unless what? Unless neither of us evolved naturally." Sterling's voice dropped to a near whisper. "Admiral, I don't think this war is what you think it is. The degradation, the similarities in our DNA, the way your ships just happened to find Earth. None of it is coincidence." Before Caden could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. His neural link flooded with emergency notifications, attack warnings from the outer defense grid. He accessed the sensor feeds and felt his blood run cold. A human fleet had emerged from hyperspace, led by a ship his intelligence identified as the EDF Sentinel. But they weren't attacking. They were being pursued. "Sir," his second-in-command's voice came through the neural link, "unknown vessels are engaging both human and Novan ships. Energy signatures don't match anything in our database. They're moving in impossible ways." Caden looked at Sterling, who had gone pale. "You know something about this?" "The missing research vessel," Sterling whispered. "We found something out there, Admiral. Something old. We thought it was just ruins, but..." He swallowed hard. "It woke up. And I think it's been waiting for this moment for a very long time." The facility shuddered as distant explosions lit up the sky. Caden made a decision that would either save or damn the Novan Empire. He deactivated the force field. "Come with me, Doctor. If what you're saying is true, both our species need to survive what's coming." He activated his neural link to the High Council. "This is Admiral Novatus. I am declaring Emergency Protocol 7. The human fleet is to be considered provisional allies against an unknown threat." As they rushed through the corridors, Sterling spoke again. "Admiral, there's something else you need to know. The DNA patterns I found, they suggest we were engineered by the same creators. We're not enemies. We're siblings who were deliberately separated." Caden felt another wave of pain course through his body, but for the first time in years, he also felt something else, hope. Perhaps this was why the humans had proven so capable in battle. Perhaps this was why Sterling could understand their biology so well. Perhaps this was exactly what both their species had been designed for. "Signal the Sentinel," he ordered as they reached the command center. "Tell them." He looked at Sterling, who nodded encouragingly. "Tell them we need to talk." The command center of the EDF Sentinel hummed with tense energy as Commander Lyra Blackwood faced the holographic projection of Admiral Caden Novatus. Behind her, Dr. Sterling sat with Science Officer Harrison, both men poring over data streams from both human and Novan sensors. "Your ships fought well, Commander," Caden said, his bioluminescent markings pulsing slowly, a sign of respect, Sterling had explained. "But these new enemies, they're unlike anything either of our peoples have encountered." Lyra nodded, studying the tactical display between them. 3 Novan ships and 2 human vessels had been lost in the initial attack. The enemy vessels had simply appeared, ignored all attempts at communication, and begun systematic attacks on both fleets. "Dr. Sterling," she called out, "what exactly did you find on the horizon's dawn?" Sterling looked up from his work, sharing a glance with Harrison. "We discovered ruins on an uncharted planetoid. The architecture was impossible. Structures that seemed to phase in and out of reality. But more importantly, we found data crystals containing genetic sequences. The same sequences that match both human and Novan DNA," Harrison added, pulling up comparative displays. "But there's more. The attack patterns of these new vessels, they matched theoretical models we derived from the ruins' defensive systems." Lieutenant Felix Reed's voice cut through the discussion. "Multiple contacts. They're back." The tactical display erupted with new signals as dozens of ships materialized around both fleets. Their design was organic, almost crystalline, with surfaces that seemed to ripple like liquid metal. "All ships, defensive formation Delta." Lyra commanded. "Admiral, if we're going to survive this, we need to coordinate." "Agreed." Caden's image flickered as his ship maneuvered. "Our weapons seem ineffective against their shields, but your rail guns showed promise in our earlier encounter." "Perhaps. A combined attack," Lyra finished his thought. "Your energy weapons to disrupt their shield harmonics, our kinetic weapons to punch through." The battle that followed was unlike anything in either species' military history. Human and Novan ships moved in perfect concert, centuries of warfare experience from both civilizations combining into something entirely new. When the enemy ships adjusted their shields to counter one species' weapons, the others would find a way through. But they were still losing. Their technology, Harrison shouted over the sound of another impact. It's not just similar to what we found in the ruins, it's exactly the same. They're using weapons and defenses that are millions of years old, but somehow more advanced than anything we have. Dr. Sterling suddenly straightened in his chair. That's it. Harrison, show me the genetic comparison again. Quick. As another enemy beam grazed the Sentinel's hull, Sterling and Harrison worked furiously at their consoles. Caden's image watched with interest despite the battle raging around them. Look here, Sterling pointed to a sequence. These markers, they're not just genetic code. They're quantum signatures. Our creators didn't just engineer our species, they programmed us. We're carrying quantum information in our DNA. How does this help us? Lyra demanded as another human ship reported critical damage. Because, Harrison's eyes lit up with understanding, if we can decode that information, we might find weapons they designed us to use. Weapons specifically made to fight them. The degradation, Caden's voice was thick with revelation. It's not a flaw. It's activation. Our bodies are trying to access this programming, but the Novan Empire's genetic engineering has been fighting it. Sterling nodded excitedly. And humans haven't accessed it because we needed the catalyst, contact with Novan biology. We're two halves of the same key. Another impact rocked the ship. Whatever we're going to do, Lyra steadied herself, we need to do it fast. I need to get to the Novan ship, Sterling said firmly. Harrison has to come too. We need both species medical labs working together. Lyra met Caden's holographic gaze. Years of military training screamed against sending her chief science officer to an enemy vessel. But they weren't enemies anymore. They were survivors. Lieutenant Reed, prepare for emergency transport. Harrison, you have 10 minutes to gather what you need. As her officers rushed to comply, Lyra studied the tactical display again. The enemy ships were no longer attacking randomly. They were hurting both fleets, pushing them toward something. Admiral, she said quietly, I don't think they're trying to destroy us. They're directing us somewhere. Caden's markings pulsed with agreement. The ruins where Sterling made his discovery. All attack vectors lead there. They want us to see something, Lyra realized. This isn't just an attack. It's a test. Another explosion lit up space between the fleets. This time, one of the enemy vessels had been hit by the combined fire of human and Novan ships. Its crystalline surface cracked, revealing something underneath that made both commanders stare in shock. That's impossible, Caden whispered. Inside the damaged enemy ship, clearly visible through the breach, was a chamber filled with thousands of bodies in stasis pods. Some looked human. Others were clearly Novan. And some were something else entirely. By all the stars, Sterling breathed, looking at the sensor readings. They're not our enemies. They're our creators. And they've come to finish what they started. The battle suddenly felt different. Every shot fired wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about answers. About destiny. And somewhere in the combined DNA of humanity and the Novan Empire lay the key to understanding it all. The ancient ruins pulsed with an eerie light as Commander Lyra Blackwood and Admiral Caden Novatus walked through its shifting corridors. Behind them, Dr. Sterling and Harrison worked to interface their equipment with the alien technology, while Lieutenant Reed coordinated security teams from both species. The architecture responds to our presence, Caden observed, his markings glowing brighter as they passed certain sections. As if it recognizes us. Or reads us, Lyra added, watching as human and Novan DNA scanners showed increasing levels of quantum activity in their cells. The closer they got to the center of the facility, the more their bodies seemed to resonate with the structure itself. Harrison's voice crackled over their comms. Commander, Admiral, we've managed to decode some of the data. You need to see this. They returned to find Sterling staring at a massive holographic display, his face ashen. It's not a weapons facility, he said without turning. It's a development center. We weren't created as weapons, we were created as solutions. The display showed countless worlds, all dead or dying. Civilizations that had risen and fallen, each failing in different ways. Some through war, others through environmental collapse, and some through technological singularities that spiraled out of control. The architects, Harrison explained, using the name they'd given their recently revealed creators, they've been trying to create the perfect species. One that could avoid the pitfalls that destroyed so many others. Each attempt taught them something new. Humans were engineered for adaptability and innovation, Sterling continued. The Novans for stability and advancement. We were supposed to find each other naturally, to combine our strengths. But something went wrong. The Novan Empire's genetic engineering, Caden's markings pulsed with shame. We thought we were perfecting ourselves, but we were fighting our true purpose. A new alarm sounded from their ships in orbit. Lieutenant Reed's voice was urgent. Multiple quantum signatures. The architect vessels are surrounding the planetoid. The ruins trembled as something massive descended from orbit, an architect ship larger than any they'd seen before. Its crystalline surface rippled, and a figure appeared in their midst. It was humanoid but seemed to shift between human, Novan, and something else entirely. Children, it spoke, its voice resonating in their minds. You have finally begun to understand. Lyra stepped forward, her hand near her weapon. Understand what? Why you attacked us? Not attack. Catalyze. The figure gestured, and the holographic display changed to show a new threat, vast, dark shapes moving between galaxies. The Void Hunters come. As they have come before, destroying all in their path. We created you to fight them, but you needed to learn to fight together first. You could have just told us. Harrison protested. No, Caden surprisingly answered for the architect. We needed to learn it ourselves. To prove we could overcome our differences naturally. His markings pulsed with sudden understanding. The degradation in my people, it was pushing us to seek help. To find humanity. The architect nodded. The final test approaches. The Void Hunters have sensed our activities. They come for this galaxy. Will you stand together? Before anyone could respond, space itself seemed to tear open above them. Through their neural links and ship sensors, they watched as massive dark shapes emerged from the rift, living shadows that devoured light itself. The Void Hunters had arrived. The combined fleet of human, Novan, and architect vessels hung in space like a constellation of defiance before the approaching Void Hunters. On the bridge of the Sentinel, now transformed by architect technology, Commander Lyra Blackwood watched as the quantum programming in her DNA fully activated. Knowledge flooded her consciousness, battle strategies evolved over millions of years, weapons technologies beyond her previous understanding, and a deep connection to every human in the fleet. Beside her, Admiral Caden's hologram showed similar changes, his markings now pulsing with patterns that matched the quantum signatures in human DNA. All ships reporting quantum integration complete, Lieutenant Reed announced, his own consciousness now linked to the fleet's neural network. Dr. Sterling's modifications are holding stable. In the Science Bay, Sterling and Harrison worked with their Novan counterparts, monitoring the merger of three civilizations' technologies. The Void Hunters are living gravitational anomalies, Harrison reported. They don't just consume light, they consume spacetime itself. But they've never encountered anything like us, Sterling added with fierce pride. We're not just two species anymore. We're what we were always meant to become. The first Void Hunter attacked, its massive form distorting space around it. But where before such an attack would have torn ships apart, the combined fleet moved as one. Human vessels provided the chaos and unpredictability that confused the Hunter's senses, while Novan ships struck with devastating precision through the gaps in spacetime. Now. Lyra commanded as a Hunter focused on her ship. Execute pattern unity. The Sentinel's hull began to glow with quantum energy. Across the fleet, human and Novan DNA resonated in perfect harmony, creating a web of quantum connections that the architects had designed eons ago. Space itself seemed to crystallize around the Void Hunter, trapping it in a lattice of frozen time. Multiple quantum signatures. Reed called out. They're adapting. As are we, Caden responded. His ship, the Imperial Dawn, moved in perfect sync with the Sentinel. Commander Blackwood, shall we show them what our species can really do? Lyra smiled, feeling the combined knowledge and power of 3 civilizations flowing through her. All ships, implement Sterling Protocol. Let's remind these hunters why they should fear their prey. What followed was beyond any battle in known history. Human inspiration merged with Novan precision and architect technology. Ships phased through solid matter, weapons fired shots that existed in multiple times simultaneously, and the very fabric of space became a weapon in their hands. The Void Hunters fought back with terrifying power, their dark forms consuming entire sections of space. But for every ship lost, the combined fleet adapted. Each sacrifice taught them something new, each defeat made them stronger. In the Science Bay, Sterling watched in awe as the quantum coding in their DNA evolved in real time. This is what we were designed for, he whispered to Harrison. Not just to fight them, but to surpass them. The final hunter loomed before them, larger than all the others. As it opened its maw to consume their reality, Lyra felt a moment of perfect clarity. All ships, channel quantum energy through your crews. Everything we have, everything we are. We're not just fighting for survival anymore, we're fighting for evolution itself. The combined beam that erupted from the fleet contained the genetic legacy of 3 species, the hopes of countless fallen civilizations, and the defiance of beings who refused to accept extinction. It struck the Void Hunter not just in one reality, but in all of them. The hunter screamed in frequencies that shattered solar systems, its form breaking apart not into destruction, but transformation. As it died, it became something new, a bridge between realities. In the silence that followed, Lyra looked at her hands, seeing the quantum energy that now flowed naturally through her being. Around her, human and Novan crews were changing, becoming something that transcended both species while preserving what made each unique. What happens now? She asked the architect representative who had appeared on her bridge. Now. The being smiled with multiple faces. Now you do what you were always meant to do. You explore. You grow. You prove that life, in all its forms, can overcome any darkness. As the fleet regrouped around the transformed hunter's remains, Lyra shared a look with Caden's hologram. In his eyes, she saw the same wonder she felt, the recognition that this wasn't an ending, but a beginning. The stars beckoned, not just with light, but with infinite possibility. And this time, they would face them together, not as separate species, but as what they were always meant to be, children of the stars, guardians of life, and architects of their own destiny. Lieutenant Reed's voice carried a smile as he made his final report, "All ships ready, Commander. Where shall we go?" Lyra looked at Caden, who nodded. Together, they gave the command that would begin their species' next great adventure. Everywhere.